Hey everyone, in today's video we're going to be going over one of Material UI's most used yet least understood components, and that is the drawer component. Now the drawer component is pretty powerful. You'll probably find it in almost every application that you use, and in today's video I'm going to show you exactly how to use the drawer, what the different types of drawers are, how to have little icons in your drawer, and also how to implement your drawer with React Router so that if you were to open it up and click one of the items on the side, it would take your user to a new page and update the URL for you. So, and I want to first of all say thank you to everyone that's been commenting on my past videos. I love interacting with you guys, and like I say in all videos, if you find value in this, please consider subscribing, liking, or leaving a comment. I try my best to respond to every single comment that's left, and I love any feedback that you have, any suggestions that you have. I really take that to heart. In fact, this video right here is from a suggestion from someone that left a comment on one of my last videos. So once again, thank you all for all the support. And without further ado, let's jump straight into it. For the drawer, there are three main types of drawers that you have to be concerned with. The first one is called a temporary drawer. The next one is going to be a drawer that is persistent, and the final one is going to be what they call a permanent drawer. And I'll tell you what each of these means. First of all, let's look into the temporary drawer. You'll see here in the Material UI documentation, they give us some options for a couple of different ways to open their drawer examples: left, right, top, or bottom. It's pretty self-explanatory. If I were to open the drawer on the top, you would see here that it sort of literally opens it up on the top. Left will open it on the left, and in this example we're pretty much just going to focus on opening it up on the left. But just so you know, where the drawer opens up is from a prop called anchor. So and we'll look into that when we actually look into the actual props itself in just a second. But we'll see here for the temporary drawer, if I click left, everything else, the drawer will open on the left and everything else will sort of dull out into the background. Now with temporary drawers, that is a feature of it. It will open up on top of existing content, and it will dull everything else in the background other than the drawer. That is pretty much what a temporary drawer will do. And if you really know your Material UI, you'll know that this temporary drawer is sort of built with the modal component in mind. If you're not sure what this modal component is it's pretty much a component that when you click a button, it will open up a little, pop-up in the middle of your screen, and it will dull everything else behind it. So for example, you can see here I clicked open modal, and everything else in the background will be dulled. The drawer and the content will be absolutely positioned on top of everything else on the screen. This temporary drawer will work the same way. Now if we scroll down to the persistent drawer, we'll see here that if I were to open this up, so here's the example. This one's actually in this little area instead of the way the other one works. When I open this up, you'll see that it actually pushes all the content to the right, and it won't gray anything out. So this one, for persistent drawer, it won't do the same overlapping of content, and it won't dull everything out. It will pretty much move all your content to the right when you open your drawer, and when you close it again, it'll move it all. And then you have your permanent drawer at the very bottom, which is what we're going to be focusing on for this video, and that is pretty much where your drawer is going to be permanently open here on the left side, and it will push any content over to the right. So now that we have an example of what our permanent drawer looks like, let's take a look of the code and see what it actually looks like inside. And you'll see here the code sort of looks a bit complex. It's not as bad as some other components, but let's break down exactly what is happening one by one. First of all, you'll notice if I were to open, for example, the persistent drawer again, you'll see here in our actual drawer code, which is going to be down here where the drawer tags start, we're passing in an open prop, and that open prop is essentially going to be a state variable that you assign up here, and whether or not it is open determines whether or not you see the drawer. So we have a handler function for setting the drawer open and setting the drawer closed, and that is triggered every time I click this icon in our app bar. So when I click this icon in our app bar, what's happening under the hood, it is setting the open variable for our drawer equal to true, and then when I click this button over here, it is setting the open variable to false, and that is what actually hides it. So you'll notice when I go back to the permanent drawer, we don't actually have to pass in and open or close into, sorry, where did it go? Oh yeah, I was looking in the right place. It's right here. So we don't actually have to pass in an open into here because our variant is permanent. And that makes it so that it is always going to be shown. We don't have to specify whether or not the drawer is shown, or whether the drawer is open or not. The next thing you'll notice is they're overriding a couple of styles. We have our variant. They're overriding a couple of classes. This is just for styling purposes to make it look good in the Material UI example. And then our anchor, which we talked about before, is left, which means it will open up on the left side. Now, the actual drawer itself is really nice because it takes in children for what is displayed inside of the drawer. And it's really good because you can customize it to be sort of whatever you want. For example, if we were to look here, we can sort of see that this is split into a couple separate parts. First, you have this sort of blank area. And this blank area then leads into an area where there are a couple of options. And in between them, we have a divider. And if you scroll down a bit more, after these couple of options, we have another divider with even more options coming after that. And you'll see here the code is specified and resembled very similar to what is happening here. Once the drawer is defined, we have a div, and that div is going to take up some space. They sort of wanted it to be sort of flush with this app bar, which is why they left some space open here. You could even make it so that this app bar will come and stretch over this drawer if you really wanted to with some CSS stylings, but we're not going to go too much into that. And then after that space, we have our divider, which you can see here. And then after our divider, we have a list. And inside of our list, this is sort of where a lot of people might get confused, and this is where I was personally pretty confused when I was learning drawer for the first time a little while ago. But what is happening here is inside of this list, they're mapping over, they have an array of every single item they want to be displayed in there. For example, they have an index, they have a star, they have a send emails, and they have a draft item. So they create an array with all of these, and then they map over them. And if you're not too familiar with JavaScript, or you're just getting familiar, map is just sort of like a for each loop that will take in each variable in the for each loop will be each item in the array. So when we're mapping over this text variable is going to be whatever the name of that value in the array we're looking at, and then in here we get to do whatever we want for it. So for example, you can see here in our list item, we have a list item for every single item here. Within that list item, we have a list item icon, which I'll touch upon in just a second, and then finally the list item text. And then primary is in list item text what the label of that list item will be, and we are passing in text, which essentially, as we loop over it, the first time we create a list item, that text will be inbox. The second time we loop over it, it will be start. The third time, send email, etc., etc., etc. And that is what creates the text here for every single list item. And then finally, for this list item icon, you'll see here that if we look at here, each item has an icon, and it sort of alternates. So it goes with this like inbox icon to like a mail icon, then inbox icon, and then a mail icon again. And the reason it does that is because the way they do it in the documentation is sort of a really weird example. What they're doing is essentially they're saying for every other icon, it just alternates. So the first, all the even icons, for example, in terms of numbers, like the first one, the second one, the fourth one, so on and so forth, will have this inbox icon, and then all the other ones, the odd numbered ones, so for example the first the one that comes after the first one, and then the third one, etc., etc., if you're looking at array indexes, will be mail icons. So it's sort of weird the way they did this, but I'm going to show you how to do this so that each one of these items will have their own icon, and you don't have to sort of do it in that weird way. And that is essentially, and then we have another divider with another list with more items, and that's essentially all there really is to it. All this stuff down here is just sampled text to sort of give you an idea of how the content looks when you have a drawer. But that is essentially all, if you look at all the other examples, a drawer is. It is just the drawer tags with the specifications on how you want your drawer to behave, and then everything inside of it is how you want everything to look inside the actual drawer itself. Now, let's take a look at the actual drawer API, and let's just really quickly go over the actual really important props here. So for example, we have anchor. We talked about this. By default, it is set to left, but you can set it to bottom, left, right, or top, and that just decides where the drawer will show up. We have our children, which is where you pass everything in. Classes, like every other Material UI component, is where you can overwrite very specific styles in the drawer component. Then we have, for example, modal props. Like I said, for some of the drawers, they're on top of a modal. So if you want to specifically pass in props for that modal, you would use this. We have our enclose, which will, in some of the other drawers, like I showed up here, if you were to click over here, this button will take in pretty much the enclose and will set the state to be false, the open state to be false. Then we have paper props because some the drawer is built up on paper. We have slide props for any like slide and transition stylings. And then finally we have variant, which we talked about. It will default to temporary, which is the one that sort of grays everything in the background out, but you can set it to permanent, persistent, and temporary. So now let's look into Code Sandbox and actually get an example of how we do this. So just like the tabs video, I've set up a Code Sandbox with very basic React routing. If you're not too familiar with the React router, I'll briefly go through it. Essentially what is happening is I have 3 pages. I have a home page, I have a contact page, and I have an about page. And essentially, all I'm doing with this routing is I'm saying if the URL is just a regular slash, I'm going to display the home page. If the URL is /contact, I'm going to display the contact page. And if the URL is /about, I'm going to display the about page. So we can see that on the example on the left. I'm going to type in /about here, and you'll just see it goes to, this is the about page. It displays whatever is in the our about.jsx, which is the about page. And if I go to contact, you'll see it just switches to, this is the contact page, which is pretty much all that's in the contact page. And then if I just go back to the base URL, it will display the home page. That just says this is the home page essentially. So that is all pretty much there is to React router right now. We're going to be first building out a basic drawer component, and then we're going to look at how to really do things with React router. So over here in the actual app.js, you'll see here I've commented out this drawer line, but essentially we're going to be creating the drawer in this file. So all I've done in this file so far is I've imported the drawer from Material UI core and I've aliased it. And a lot of the times you're going to want to do this. It's sort of weird in your if you're making a project and you have a drawer in your project to name the component something other than drawer. But the thing is, when you default import the drawer from Material UI, it will name the name of the Material UI drawer is also just drawer. So you have 2 options. Either one, you can import, you can alias it and say like MUI Drawer from, and you can directly call it over here. You can default import it from the actual drawer folder from Material UI library. Or what I like to do, because I like to import everything in sort of the same system as non-default imports from Material UI core, I like to alias it. So I can say I want to take the drawer component from Material UI and I want to name it for my purposes Material UI Drawer. So when I'm using the Material UI Drawer, I'm going to use MUI Drawer tags instead of just the drawer tags like we saw in the examples over there. And this is nice because like when for example, we're going to be importing list item, we can even just quickly do that now. I'm going to want to be importing all the list item stuff, and I don't like to have huge lines of imports like you see here. Every single thing that they're importing is like a whole like big line. So what I like to do is I just like to group import them like so. You can when you import them as non-default from core, you can group import them. And someone actually pointed out in one of my previous videos that this will actually make the bundle a bit, when you build your React application, it'll make the bundle a bit bigger, which can cause like bundling your application to be a bit longer. But I haven't noticed any big performance differences using this in production level applications, so it's not that big of a deal in my opinion. So now I have all these imports. Let's go ahead and just very make a very basic drawer. So we're going to go ahead and import, if we scroll down to the actual drawer code, we're going to just import essentially just a list of items and pop that in there the same way that they had before. And then for now, we're going to leave out the list item icon just for simplicity's sake, and we're also going to take list from here as well. And now I can go into my application, and generally you'll want to put your drawer in your top level component. So in most cases that is your app.js. You'll just want to put it anywhere, because it doesn't matter if you put it above or below the other content, because by default with the anchor, defaulted to left, for example, it will show up in the sort of correct position all the time, regardless of where it is in your code. And you'll see here, if I go ahead and uncomment that code now, and I were to go back and refresh the page here. Oh, the last thing I have to do is, so right now nothing's showing up, and that's because right now the default is variant for the drawer is temporary, and with temporary, as you recall, we have to set open to true. So just for example's sake, let's set set open to true here. You can just set open if you don't want to write open equals true, and that will automatically default it to true. But we can see here, if I set open equal to true, we'll have our sort of really basic drawer on the side here. But like we said, we want the temporary, the permanent variation. So I'm going to say variant is equal to permanent. And you'll see here that I don't get that graying effect here, and we still will have our actual drawer on the right side here. So now let's go ahead and from this point we can pretty much customize, bring that icon back in and show you how you can customize it without sort of this weird logic. But first, if you'll notice, the actual homepage text isn't displaying because the app bar is on top of it. And unlike the other app variants, drawer variants, the drawer, when it's in permanent state, you have to add a bit of styling for it to show properly. So all we have to really do here is, the first thing we want to do is we can wrap this in div instead of React fragment. And we want to give this a class and pretty much make the display flex. So what we can do is we can import make styles from Material UI core/styles. And we can say const use styles equals make styles. And let's give this div a class name of, let's say, for example, classes.container. And let's get classes from useStyles. And finally, over here, we can set container. We can say display flex. Now you'll notice it still doesn't work, and all we have to really do is just give this drawer a width. So that it pushes the content out, because right now the drawer is pretty much the way that it's coded internally for Material UI. It just doesn't have a width for this for the drawer container, then everything else is bigger. So we can go ahead and we can import make styles. We can even just copy this so it's a bit faster, and we can say drawer. We can make the width to something like, let's say 160 pixels. Then over here, const classes equals to use styles. And we can give our drawer a class name equal to classes.drawer. We'll see here our homepage text gets pushed out of it. And now we can go ahead and do that simplification like before. So the first thing we're going to do is let's items list. Let's create an items list and let's move all of this stuff into there. So first we'll just straight up copy what we have here and test this and make sure we have it working before we get onto the more complex stuff. And as we can see, it looks like, there we go, it's still working. Now for the icons and stuff like that, what I want to do is I want to essentially make it so that this array doesn't just contain text. I want it to contain objects, and each object will represent one of these list items, and it will have not only the text that should be displayed in there, but also the icon itself. So for example, what I can do is I can say text, and then I can say like inbox, and let's just for now convert everything with text. So text inbox, and then text, or sorry, start, send email, and then once I format this, it'll look a lot better. Text, and then wrap that in, and we can see here. So now we have an array of objects, and right now each object essentially only has the actual text displayed inside of it as well. And now you'll notice we're getting an error. All we really have to do here is we can change this from just straight up returning, and what we can do is wrap this in a return, and we can destructure the actual text. So we can say item, we can destructure the actual text from there. So we can say text is equal to item, and this should work. And there we go. It's still displaying the text. So now what we're doing is anything that we want to use in this JSX that is being displayed here, we can sort of pass it in, add it as an attribute to this object for every single item, and then just destructure it at this level and use it. So for example, we can also, for some things, use an icon. So we can say icon, and I think we have to actually add Material UI icons library. UI icon. Let's see where they import it in here. So /icons. So at Material UI /icons. At Material UI /icons. There we go. Go ahead and import that. And now let's say, for example, we want the inbox icon and the mail icon. This code sandbox, by the way, is coming from the official example that they have here. In the middle of making this video, code sandbox went down, so I just was sort of playing around with it a bit, and then when it finally came up, I started again. So for, let's say for inbox, I want the inbox icon. Whoops. So I can just call the inbox icon. And then let's say for the icon for send email, we give it the mail icon. We can say mail icon. Oops. Add that there. All right. So nothing's going to be displaying yet, but we've added the attributes. And you'll notice that for some of these, we don't have icons. So what we can do here is we can say, we can first destructure the icon over here. And sometimes this icon is going to be undefined because, for example, start, it doesn't have an icon. And I can say icon and, which is pretty much saying if the icon is not undefined, and then whatever we put after this and will be displayed. So what we want to display is essentially the actual icon nested inside of a list icon. So we can go ahead and delete the Material UI code from before, pop this in here, and instead of having this weird ternary stuff, I can just simply display the actual icon itself. If I scroll back here, you'll see that we've got it working. So now we have it working so that icons, whenever we include an icon, it'll show up between there. And now just for the sake of uniformity, let's give all of these icons just so it looks not as weird. There we go. So now that we've gotten that done, that pretty much covers the basics of the drawer. But now let's see how we would implement it if we wanted to, for example, whenever I clicked one item, have it lead us to another page. And also let's increase the drawer width just a little bit so that it doesn't cover it. There we go. So now what we're going to do is essentially, first of all, let's change this to the actual real names. So home, about, and contact. And we can get rid of this last item over here. And this structure is also really nice because it's really easy to add more items and stuff like that. But here we go. We're going to keep the icons the same. I don't really want to, for the sake of example, find an icon that goes well with home, about, and contact. But now what we're going to do is essentially whenever one of these items get pressed, with React Router, what we want to trigger is something called a history.push. History is a default object that comes from React Router, and when we want to change our URLs in a single page application, which is the case for React, what we essentially want to do is do a history.push, and then in the parameters put the URL we want to go to. So for example, for home, since the URL is just /, we would want to do a history.push /. But first of all, we need history to actually be passed in here. So one way of doing that is wrapping our application with the with router higher order component, and that comes from React Router DOM. Now, if I were to take in props here, and I were to console.log props, and open up the console here, you can see here, let's refresh this again. Alright, it's just refreshing. You'll see here that props has a couple of different objects. And history, location, and match are always going to be default passed in when you wrap your component around with router. These are all things to do with React Router. Location, it could tell you what your current path name is. Match is good for getting URL parameters. as we saw in the tabs video, and history is good for, like I said, history.pushing. So we're going to destructure history out of here. So we can say const history is equal to props. We're going to pull the history variable out of props. And now I can add an onClick to each of these. So I can say onClick is going to be a function that calls history.push to just slash for home, because we wanted to just go to slash. Make sure we add the comma here. Now I can copy and paste this for every single one of them and just change the place that it goes. So about will go to slash about, and contact will go to slash contact. And now all that's left to do here is we can destructure the onClick from here, from the item. And now for this list item, I can say onClick equals, and then I can just pass in pretty much the onClick from before, the onClick that we're getting from the actual item itself. And let's see if this works. Let's go ahead and refresh our application. And all right, so right now we're on the home page. So if I click about, there we go. It switches the current URL to slash about, and about page displays. If we go to contact, the same thing will happen over and over again. And that is pretty much it. This code will be on Code Sandbox. I'm going to be sharing this in the description below. And like I said before, if you found value in this video, please consider liking, subscribing, or leaving a comment. I try to reply to everything, and I really hope that you found value in this video and that it was useful and that everyone is staying safe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.